And
the state engineer, we talked to him directly.
Okay. And so
he's arranged with the state attorney general for us to meet with him.
okay.
This is just to give you a little background. What I'm primarily interested in is this condition down on the border, and that is federal business. I've called several offices in Washington, mostly in the House, I guess. And the answer I get on Border 21 is they never heard of it. I don't know whether you've ever heard of it or not. I used to write a newspaper column here locally for 7 years. And that was one of the first things I wrote about. I wrote 5 or 6 columns on Border 21. And I had the government documents.
Okay, I have heard something about Border 21. Give me your version of the situation.
What Border 21 is an area that started out 62.5 miles into Mexico and 62.5 miles into the United States. From the Gulf of Mexico to the Pacific Ocean, that was turned into an international territory by NAFTA. Every single prediction that the critics of NAFTA predicted has come about, probably without exception.
Okay.
NAFTA created the NAD Bank, which was to finance Border 21. Now, if you read the government documents, they talk about environmental issues. This is baloney. This is why Bush will not do anything about closing the border. Because he thinks he's going by federal law. It became federal law 1st of January 1997.
Sierra County Economic Development. This is Ilma. Yes, I am fine. How are you? Oh, sometimes.
Okay.
Oh, sure. How can I help you?
What message do you have for the Congressman about Border 21?
Tomorrow. May I please take a message
Until
to call you?
Border 21, the NAD Bank, and NAFTA are done away with.
Okay, let me leave her a message, and it will be Monday before
And
she
the United
gets back
States
to you.
is free of those 3 things. Nothing is going to change down at the border.
Okay.
And the invasion from Mexico is going to continue.
Give me your phone number, please.
This is just like a war. We're being invaded. When 20,000 foreigners come into the country illegally
Okay, let me give that back
and
to 1-800.
take advantage of all the freebies,
41414.
and we pay for it, the taxpayers, that's a war.
Okay.
You meant
We're in the
million.
midst of a war we want to stop.
You meant million, didn't you? Not 20,000? You went millions, not 20,000, correct?
Yeah, 20 million.
Something 30 million.
Thank you so much. I hope you have a nice weekend. Bye.
Okay.
That's pretty much it.
Very good. Very concise. I appreciate your input today.
I'm a businessman.
And I'm glad you waited to have this conversation. We are getting this issue is in the front of everything right now because it is so hot. There's so much concern and pressure on this issue. And of course, you know, the Senate had their bill out there that they were trying to ram through, and I think that has at least been slowed. And you know, the Congressman has been promoting a strategy that, you know, I think one of the flaws of the Senate bill was that it was too big, too much, and it introduced new laws that would be more difficult to enforce probably than the laws we have now. The Congressman have been talking about 3 things. First, border security, shut the border down, stop the bleeding. And doing that with Border Patrol, doing that with technology assets. The new Boeing contract is rolling out now. Is real. That technology is here and now. And to employ all of those ways and means to secure the border first.
I've got another suggestion. Bring our troops home from 123 countries around the world and put them on the border where they belong.
Yeah,
they can protect our border,
I think a lot of them are
Amen.
coming home for that reason. Now, the second piece And again, securing the border is an issue all by itself. It is a big enough piece that you have to deal with that separately. The second big piece is you have 12, 15, 20 million, however the number is. We got to figure out who those folks are. Credentialize the ones that we feel can stay. The criminals, the terrorists, the criminal aliens. Figure out how to get them out of the country. So that is another big piece. It's a separate.
They're all criminals.
It's a separate piece. It's a separate piece.
Yeah.
And then, so that's the second piece. And the third piece is reforming the naturalization process. The naturalization process for people who want to come to this country as legal immigrants.
Legally, yeah.
And that process takes anywhere from 5 to 12 years, depending on who you talk to. And so that's too long. And there's a disincentive to do it the legal way. There's a disincentive to do it the legal way because of the cumbersome the process, that bureaucracy that the government has operated with all those flaws and delays in process for all these years. So the Congressman's view, I think, is represented in those three different categories. He thinks there are different problems. There's a different way to deal with each of them, and I think that's why he was fundamentally concerned about the Senate bill, which tried to take all these things and lump it into one. It's just too much to chew. So I'll keep my notes, and I'm going to talk with the Congressman this afternoon, and I'm going to tell him about our conversation.
Okay, let me give you a little bit more background. When we first moved here in New Mexico in '71, within a year, I was with the Sheriff's Department. I carried a regular commission in this county for over 13 years. I used to work with the Border Patrol picking up wetbacks, and I picked up a lot of them, put them in jail. I know something about it. One thing that the people in this country I don't think are going to hold still for is a national ID card. If that's part of this program, we don't want any part of it. It's got to be done. There's the Immigration Service and the Border Patrol have the facilities, or they should have, to go around and pick these people up. And there's a lot of different ways of doing it than trying to saddle the citizens of this country with a national ID card. We're not going to hold still for that.
Yeah, I'm not sure which of those hundreds of details are going to really be considered and really well, but there's literally the pieces to the thing. Did you look at the Senate bill? The pieces, it is so complex. And I don't know what the final legislation is going to look like. But again, you say national ID card?
No national ID card.
If I may, I'd like to add to the foundation he was building on NAFTA. You know, the good thing about New Mexico is in the Constitution for New Mexico, we have a lat and long of our borders. And the fact that, Bill Richardson, back when he was a congressman, introduced the La Paz Agreement, which was the forerunner to the Border 21. And basically was trying to set up free trade zones and things like that. Now, and the thing is that this by changing our borders, or basically making an international zone, basically then subverts our border, okay? So where the congressman could have and should have something is about maintaining the integrity of the lat and long of New Mexico, which is explicitly stated in the Constitution for New Mexico, okay? Now, that was the third thing I had here about NAFTA. When Bob Dole was running for president, since NAFTA apparently isn't a full-fledged treaty, they said that basically given 6-month notice, we could get out of NAFTA. Now, the reason we have to get out of NAFTA, and why I and some others think there's kind of games playing with the immigration, is the fact that in the NAFTA agreement, which none of them read before they signed it, just like they were trying to do that with this immigration bill, was try to just shove it down their throats and have them sign it without reading it. Then some parts got leaked, and some things are 8 or 10 years out, even after it got implemented, and that's what the problems are. Is the fact that in NAFTA, they have it in that document to have open borders. It's either by 2010 or 2012. So all this is sort of game playing when in fact they have a contract in place. We call it a contract in place that basically is why they're not really aggressive on the borders, because they've already sold us out, in some of our views, by actually having it for a free trade zone and have it already a porous area via NAFTA. So NAFTA is a real taproot of the problem here.
Have you been following the North